Welcome to the Answers for Elders radio show. Meet the trusted experts who will give you straight answers and will help guide you on the path of later life care. Now, here's your host, founder, caregiver, and CEO, Suzanne Newman.
And welcome back, everyone, to Answers for Elders Radio Network. And I am here with life coach Laurie Hardie, and we are talking about emotional and social wellness with the Vitality Revolution. And Laurie, thank you again for being on the show this hour. We talked a little bit about the scenario in the first segment of how, people get off center and off balance. And I would really kind of talk a little bit on this segment about, when help is available, what happens usually?
So what I've seen in certain situations is the one who's ill, there is help available, but they don't want an outsider in. So the caretaker then has this guilt or feels like they have to do everything. Mm-hmm. And so they give up everything, which is really dangerous and can actually hospitalize them, as you said mm-hmm. before, statistics for caretakers. So where do they get that permission or mm-hmm. wherewithal to accept the help? Can you address that? Because
I will, Laurie, because story that I have very recently. I had a family that their sister was a family care partner, and she was taking care of their dad. And the sister had reached out to me and said, I'm trying to find support for my sister. And, but we've talked about it, and we could really give her one day off a week, with a home care organization. And we as a family will pay for it. And she refused. She said, no, nobody can take care of my dad like this. I'm not going to do this. And so they asked me specifically, how can we help? And that's kind of an interesting process when you really look at it. Are you finding that with some of the people that you work with, that they feel this sense of, oh, I have to do it all myself?
Yes. And so both sides of that, when they have to do it themselves, then they do it badly and they do it resentfully, and it's not loving. I was a single mom, and I got people that helped me because they had to, and it wasn't mm-hmm. loving, and it wasn't fun for me. In fact, it made me feel terrible, but I accepted the help because I needed it. And mm-hmm. then you have the one who says, okay, I'm willing to bring someone in. And the ill person says, no, you do it or no one. And then that puts them in a bind. So that's where we lose our, what you were talking about, having an outside life, having another mm-hmm. purpose. Mm-hmm. And we get so wrapped up, and then we get sick, and then we can't be the caretaker.
Yeah. So what is your tips on occupational wellness? What kind of tips can you give those that are either caring for a loved one or a senior that may have been displaced, they've retired, and they're looking for a new purpose in life? What kind of tips do you have?
Is find something. Often when people end up in nursing homes, they're cared for, but they still want to give back. And if Absolutely. We can look at it like that and say, can they write a card? Is there something that they can do that makes mm-hmm. them feel back? I know mm-hmm. when I was a single mom and I felt like a charity case, this organization that helped me, they said, hey, we have all these bags we're going to fill for kids, and we need bows on them. Oh my goodness, it made me so happy because I felt like I had nothing to give. But you give me a project, now I have self-worth, and I'm going to be able to make it through the next day.
It's so true. And I was looking for, not that I don't have enough, let me tell you, going on in my life, but during the pandemic, I was sitting on my rear end all day, and I was getting calls for people that needed help, that were lonely, that were depressed. And so what did my idea go into is that I started a therapy dog organization. I had the resources, and I thought, I could do this. And I found a trainer, and I put this together. It was really it was a little bit crazy. And of course, my husband looks at me like, you already have like a million things on your plate. But you know what? That's what gives me passion in life. And I think anything, like I always say, think about, the things that you love to do. If it's, you have a hobby, if you have a, you love connection, maybe you love to read, join a book club, but do some things that make you feel a sense of accomplishment. Maybe you want to become a coach like Laurie, and help people. You want to write a book. You're teach people right now to write and live their legacy. And I think about, when I worked for Tony Robbins way back when in the aughts, world back in the late 90s. But, he used to say, or he's everyone's life turns out to being an example or a warning. Now you think about that. Are you going to live that example, or are you going to be, live this precious time that we are on this planet for a very short time? How are we going to, live it? What are we going to do that will make a difference? And I look back at, I can't imagine in my life, I'm very purpose oriented to the point where probably I'm overdone because I neglect relationships. So I probably need to spend a little bit more time on the social wellness side. But I think it's really important that we talk about that piece. Like, you need to look back and say, what is my obituary going to say? I think one of the things that I've gone through classes is you're supposed to write your own obituary. And that's kind of an interesting thing. What did you accomplish in your life? What did you do in your life? What were your passions? What gave you joy? What made you feel good at the end of the day, that when you, went to sleep at night and you could take a deep breath and go, wow, that was really cool. And I think there's nothing more adrenaline in my life than feeling like I've made a difference. I mean, I guess, do you find that that's the same for people, Laurie? Do you find that that's...
I think everybody wants to make a difference, and that's why reinventing your life and having a good second half is important. But I think what we forget is these elders that we're caring for have wisdom. And I don't know if you've heard the story about the grannies in Africa.
No.
A granny went and sat on a bench, and as the kids would go to and from school, she'd sit there. Well, the kids got used to her. They'd sit and they'd tell her stories. Well, they would listen to her stories. And pretty soon they recognized the crime rate had gone down in that village. And so they started putting grannies on every bench. If we could remember and we could access their wisdom, go to the nursing home for a half hour a week and say, tell me a story. Then that elder feels like they matter, like their wisdom, because we often don't want to listen to the wisdom of our elders. Listen to the wisdom. I call it reverse mentoring. They may need help with a phone. They can't figure out how to do a text. You sit there, help them text, and then you listen to their story.
Sounds good. And Laurie, you and I are going to talk about social wellness right after this. We at Answers for Elders thank you for listening. Did you know that you can discover hundreds of podcasts in our library on senior care? So visit our website and discover our decision guides that will help you also navigate decision making. Find us at answersforelders.com.